You're listening to Beauty, Strength, and Dominance, the official podcast of Lingerie Fighting Championships. And now, here's your host, Michael Larkin.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of Beauty, Strength, and Dominance, the official LFC Lingerie Fighting Championships podcast. My name is Mike Larkin, and joining me today is the one, the only Miss Brandi Mae. Brandi, it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege. How are you?
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for having me on. I'm super excited.
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, folks, Brandi has done so much great work, whether it comes to sessions wrestling, bodybuilding, the adult entertainment industry. You have done so much great work in so many different facets of life. But now we see you doing your work for Niché Boutique. You and self and Miss Kim have been doing great work, doing some custom lingerie fitting for us LFC talents and LFC personnel. It's great just to see your work in that realm as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm super excited. We're just kind of starting out the first batch of outfits, and yeah, we'll see what happens when all these ladies put on this, sexy, hot, lingerie. Not that they're not sexy already and, super, but, just adding maybe a little bit more flair or color, or pizzazz to the outfits. I think, it's just fun and it's cool. And to start, a clothing line, it's a really cool place to start. You know what I mean? So to like launch off. So I'm excited. I'm excited, but especially the next couple months.
Oh, agreed wholeheartedly. And I think first and foremost, let's talk about how this came into fruition here. Because I first started seeing about Niché Boutique with yourself and Kim really as we started getting more towards the new LFC events coming up. And for those who have not checked out Custom Lingerie Fitting, we had Ziva Faye in there, we had Kira Batara, we had Bella Madison, Bella Rockefeller, so many ladies, and the girls from the We're Hard podcast. Let's talk about this because you really have dipped your toe into it. We've seen a lot of your work and yourself in beautiful lingerie has had up by Niché Boutique. So what kind of made you want to go towards that realm along with your friend Kim, who's an amazing bodybuilder in her own right?
Sure. So I will say, I have a big marketing background and, Kim is definitely the designer stylist. And, I mean, she's just this master seamstress, is what I've coined her. She's got over 25 years, just pretty much styling, creating. I mean, she's made everything from, costumes to, lingerie, big celebrity costumes. So, she's really capable of anything. And her and I kind of accidentally came across each other through like a mutual friend, and we just really hit it off as friends. And then she made me some custom stuff, and we just really hit it off. And I was like, hey, let's maybe start a clothing line. And she had some ideas, but then I kind of was like, well, look, I know all these beautiful wrestlers. I was like, why not we make some outfits for maybe the, like the lingerie fighters. And then, it really kind of took off, and they were a lot more receptive and excited about it than I was even anticipating. And then, getting their feedback, and then even getting feedback from, like, I guess the president Holly, about, their outfits. So, and then Kim with her like great design and like just her high glam, element. I'm, like I said, I'm excited to see these outfits. The first, batch, she showed me pictures and stuff over the last, I guess it's probably been about a month. So she's done it pretty quickly as well. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like, it started with kind of like an idea. And then now, I've really kind of looked into like this active lingerie thing, and there's really actually nothing like it. I think they make like dance wear for like exotic dancers, and that might have some elastic garter, but there's really nothing that's been ever created that's actually like lingerie with lace and stuff that's really made for stuff like wrestling. Not rightfully so, but now there's this big great league. So why not? It's 2023, anything is possible.
Absolutely. I mean, if we saw like a great taste of that, we saw it in the 80s with gorgeous ladies of wrestling and really got to see that flair and that style. I think the overall thrill that we have here is we have women like yourself. I mean, it's a very empowering figure. When you look at Lingerie Fighting Championship, it's a little bit of MMA, a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of clothing. I think it brings that absolute sex appeal. And I'm going to say this right now, the Ellen lingerie is a very big fashionista type of view that really goes into said product. And I think it's not just about kicking ass and taking names, but also looking good in the process.
Yeah,
So, Miss
I
Brandi Mae,
agree.
I gotta say
Yeah,
this to you because you yourself are a very stylish human being in your own right. And we'll get into your films here, but I want to ask you, Brandi Mae, when it comes to lingerie, what are some of your favorite types of lingerie? Because you know from the moment you step out there and the moment you show your stuff and strut your stuff and apply your craft, that lingerie, it's eye popping. It's very everything that gravitational pull. What's some of your favorite lingerie, Brandi?
sure. I mean, really my favorite probably piece of like outfit to wear, whether it be even like for, sexy photos, is really like a good bodysuit and being muscular myself and athletic built. And that was another thing, that Kim and I really had this agree on is like, stuff just doesn't fit. And not only is it really athletic women, it just, there's a lot of, so much is manufactured and it fits just this one, stereotype of, pattern. And, that just isn't what us over here on the in the West, especially muscular and athletic. And so, over the years, I've always loved bodysuits, and I've actually loved a lot of the stuff that we're making, and I would have loved to have worn it, but unfortunately, like you're ordering stuff off Amazon, and so it's like, but the bodysuits, I've always been like a super body, kind of high waisted bodysuit. I think it's just a classic for so many women, but it's because it accentuates your curves and perks up stuff. So for me and my body type, I've always loved a good like bodysuit lingerie and maybe stockings. For years I was actually so big I couldn't wear a lot of stuff. So that's so the bodysuit's always kind of as long as it fits. But yeah, the bodysuits are always really my favorite.
And I think that's also a great point too. I mean, you look at Madonna back in the 90s where she had that latex, it's like more towards the dominatrix type realm when she did that video Human Nature. Like everything like Madonna did really showcased that fashion, made her the figure that she is. I think we could take elements and dare I say increments, the subtleties, the intricacies, whatnot, of what we see in popular culture and kind of contrast it into our own style. And I mean, I look at it from a stance too as well. I think the first time I'll say this right now, the first time I ever came across your profile, I remember seeing a lot of this stuff with Sessions Wrestling. Shout out to Jennifer Thomas, aka Jenny Bloody Valentine here in LFC. What I love about it too is it's the muscle worship. It's a fit, beautiful woman like yourself, and you do have that. We talk about curves the word, spins the verb here, Miss Brandi Mae.
Nice.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's a very empowering message for a lot of the teens nowadays and all the up and growing women here in the industry. I think it sends a great message, and I got to give a shout out to Sessions Wrestling because you yourself, whether we talk about the overall exercise, the overall head scissors, and everything, you really do get to showcase your craft internal and externally.
Yeah, I mean, even being an entertainer, even more of like being a producer the way I have for 15 years, I mean, still is a lot of athleticism. I mean, it's still even now, I'm working on various businesses, but I still have to really take time, out to really still weight train because that's still part of, your brand and part of, what I've, been doing for so long. But it's, I mean, it takes so much athleticism and so much, discipline to just kind of, do what we all do, the bodybuilding too, but even the wrestling, these girls, I mean, I don't think people really give enough credit, especially probably even to the LFC, the girls. And I mean, and that's why I think I was maybe asked years ago once, a couple times to actually fight in the LFC myself. And because it's so hardcore, and I can go and talk a little bit about like my kickboxing history, but like because I knew it was still some MMA elements, I was like, I don't know, these women are really, because I did go to the bodybuilding and the muscle, and what people don't realize is there's, especially at my biggest, I was 160 pounds and I'm 5 foot 5'1". It's hard to kind of do both. It's hard to be like a fighter and a wrestler, and then still be so muscular. So it was like I kind of years ago chose like the muscle path, and I did the best I could to be an overall, like all around athlete and wrestle. But I just kind of had to pick the path, and my body's, very hyper muscular, and I carry muscle easy when I'm training and eating. So I was like, let me stick to this path. So that's actually why I never really was in the LFC myself, or why I never like decided to wrestle. I mean, I've done erotic wrestling. Um, and that's very hardcore, and it was never scripted, it was never choreographed. But I know people have kind of asked me like why I would do like the erotic wrestling versus the LFC. But what I think a lot of people don't realize, because it is lingerie, I don't think they realize how dangerous and how MMA and how authentic it really is. And that's why I kind of always just stuck with the muscle stuff. And even in my erotic wrestling career, I never really did very well with winning. I mean, I was there and I gave it, my shot, right? But like, I just was never that great. My stamina was never really that good. I never practiced and trained, as a wrestler. I always just stuck to the weights. So, I mean, we all kind of choose our paths, but sometimes I think the fans never really understood. And I got bullied and trolled a lot for losing in the wrestling I did lose, that I did do. But, I mean, I love muscle, I love bodybuilding, but I also, think that these women are so incredible, I mean, to do what they do and fight and be so gorgeous and sexy doing it. I'm like, it's incredible. And I, kind of, I'm not saying I'm too old to do anything, but now that I am like in my 40s, I do kind of look back like, maybe I should have given it a shot. Now that I'm knowing the people and I'm in, talking to everybody, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have, tried. I know it's never too late, but I don't know. I just love my muscle, and I love lifting weights and bodybuilding and the whole process. It's really cathartic, and it's what I've been doing for so long. So I just love it. I love muscle.
First and foremost, you are still most gorgeous than ever, Miss Brandi Mae. Let's put that
Oh,
out here, folks.
thank
You're
you so
very
much.
You're very welcome. But no, I mean, I look at it from a stance as well. It's a very hard transition because a lot of people have done it where they go from the fitness world. And you look at great women, God rest her soul, China, women like Trish Stratus who got into the WWE right after fitness modeling. It's a whole different ballgame. And I've seen you do the erotic stuff as well. We had women's erotic wrestling back in the day where we saw a lot of great sensuality mixed with wrestling. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like you mentioned, the hard work. They see the L lingerie and they kind of make it as like a deterrent, so to speak. They kind of don't take it as serious as it really is. Also equate that to the lingerie football league that we have, badass women playing football but looking good at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. they don't
Yeah.
they don't realize what goes into it. And you, Miss Muscle over here, I gotta say, like, if you go back to some of the old school Brandi Mae here and some of what you're doing now, I was always impressed, and I always love the discipline that you put into just your craft from the bodybuilding side of things, because it takes a lot of hard work and discipline to do what you do. And like I said, I still think it shines through today. So I mean, you may have not competed in LFC, but here you are right now. So I gotta say, the journey is worth taking, and god dang man, you're here, but in a different great way and another different
Thank
perspective. So
you.
you got to give you kudos.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. I enjoyed bodybuilding. I did it probably competitively for at least a good decade, and I always kind of stayed in Vegas. I was in this weird time of female bodybuilding where it's like if you competed kind of on a national level, you could kind of qualify the next year. So I kind of was lucky. I was able to just kind of keep competing. And I think the biggest I got was like a middle heavyweight, which is still really big. And it's taken me years to actually come down some from that size, because I had just actually gotten so big. I mean, you can only grow so much. So it's taken me years to kind of minimize my back a little bit more and just kind of restructure my body. So reasons like clothes could actually fit me, whether I'm making them or not. You still at some point just wanted to like kind of slim down certain areas and maybe consider doing like a wellness division and stuff. But yeah, the diet is what's really, really restrictive. And I know like there's certain elements, like, not all the wrestlers, are really into maybe, the diet element because they're like young and they're just, hardcore and aggressive and just can be, kick ass. But the diet I think was what was probably the hardest part. And I think is the hardest part of any, athletic, of just anything, is just being so restrictive on the diet to have that aesthetic of being, abs and just super shredded and super lean. So, when I was in my late 20s and all of my 30s, it was pretty easy to kind of maintain but now that I'm, trying to shift gears a little bit and change priorities some, it's not as easy. I have to say that discipline is hard as hell. Like, it's really, really, but yeah, the discipline is in the diet is what's probably the most grueling. But like I said, I love the athletics. I've always been a real athlete anyway. So I've always loved even elements of the wrestling. I love, all athletics, but it's this diet that sucked, and I'm sure everybody would agree with me in that element. Just the food, it's like, oh no.
I always give it credit to especially the amazing women like yourself. And I had this discussion. So I had Ariel X on the show, and we'll talk about Evolve Fights here in a second. I always equate it to this. What I love about it too is you talk about your kickboxing, the discipline of just the overall self-defense and what have you. We'll get into kickboxing here. But there's a lot of things that coincide here. And what I always respected about it too as well, there was always a term back in the day that I hated, and it was called mannish. And for those that don't know, mannish is women that we see who get into bodybuilding, and there's a lot of derogatory and things that go to it. But for me, I always looked at it from a stance too as well. I was raised by my mother, love my mother to death, and we get to see beautiful women like Brandi Mae and many women in the bodybuilding realm and many different combative natures for women. They look at appearance like that because women to get into fitness and what have you. I look at it from a stance too as well. Sessions wrestling, muscle worship. There's a lot of beautiful women who do the bodybuilding realm, who do so many combative natures and so many great images. I think it's important to showcase that because a lot of people really don't understand just the overall, not just the taste of it, the preference, but just the overall art form, the je ne sais quoi, dare I say, the overall poise that goes into bodybuilding, and so many great women like yourself doing these combative natures, these fitness competitions, and everything that goes into the said pageantry of it.
Yeah, well, I've noticed, and this is like aging me. Not aging me, but it just shows how long I've been around. I've noticed a huge, ever since kind of the social platform, has, come about since 2017, like OnlyFans and these, what I've noticed is a huge influx of girls getting into fitness, because I think on a platform like that, it gives that little bit of differentiation, and it gives that little bit of something that would entice, so many viewers, whether it be just super big boobs or, that element of fitness was such a huge component to, like, influence culture, like the Instagram when it first started and all that, so it really, I've seen a huge influx since I've been around, because I've been around so long, and I've seen the fitness culture really change and skyrocket. And it's interesting. Of course you get the, the narcissists, and of course me, sometimes I'm like, what the hell do they know? They're just doing it for, like the money, or they see, they can make, get a lot of fans and stuff on their platform from having abs or a six-pack and saying they're a fitness model. But at the end of the day, I do think it's cool that, we can have more people open to, more diversity, and be more open to, like you said, the different, types of people, and, all in this like subculture, because I think it's becoming like mainstream, and like especially with like the millennial generation, and what they've been exposed to with platforms and internet. So it's, I think it's just cool to see so much levels and diversity, because I've met with a few content creators from like other countries, and they're like big muscle, like big, and they're not really competitive, or they're not competing, they're not wrestling or fighting, that's just their lifestyle, they have their platforms, and so that's probably their motivation. So I come from the time where it's like, kind of more of a purpose or a so even me, I have to like, well, they're making money from it, so hey, that's their motivation, right? So it's cool to see just so much diversity and so much more of it now, at least, the past decades, since, like the Instagrams and all that stuff. So, I just think it's cool. I try to not be an old bitter Betty, and always just encourage and support, like, everybody despite everything. Cause, that's the key to, I think, happiness, is not being, judgmental and mean, just, hey, support it and, move on.
First of all, you are not aging yourself at all, man. Let's just get that out of the way. here. I completely agree with you. I look at it from a stance too as well. Social media has become its pros and cons in today's generation. I think from Instagram modeling and what we get to see people make money on their platform like that. We see OnlyFans, we see many of it's from the adult side of things. I think ever since COVID and people finding ways to, get lucrative, get very much with the money side of things, COVID has helped a lot. And I look at a lot of these models nowadays, and especially, we see modeling in general. People need to expand their horizons, be more open minded. You see plus size models, you see many different forms of modeling, so to speak. I think
Yeah.
and I think it's best just for people to open up their horizons and really do them, because the uniqueness, the preferences, and variety, you never know what somebody's really into. You know what I'm saying? What they look out for, what they gravitate towards. I think that's
Yeah.
important to really just let everybody just, showcase themselves, like you mentioned, support it, and let them flourish to where they're going to go to.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's cool. I think, it's taken me some adjustment, because I come from the time of MySpace, to like expo conventions and, that's, selling calendars and all that like old school DVD, magazine. And, I'm like right on that cusp of like the old millennials, what I am. So like, I'm, still like trying to like find, that balance of adjusting to, all these changes so quickly, but I'm doing a pretty good job. I've managed to, just do my thing, transition, and just, appreciate even the younger generations and the, young girls or whatever. But, I mean, you have to, be glad that at least for me, a lot of that money's been fragmented down from like big companies, big producers. So, hey, at least, the individual can kind of monopolize a little bit more. So you kind of have to, stay positive with it and let people be whatever size, manage not or whatever that, whatever they want to be, right? To each their own. Like, life's too short to, worry about that, really.
Well, absolutely. And first of all, taking it back with MySpace, I like your style. Absolutely. Everybody remembers those days. Yes. But no, that's the thing too. We've come from a generation of where we are now with social media, and then the old school days promotes with DVDs, and there's MySpace, and oh my goodness. But I think that increase of what we see now as well, and I include you with this, everything has evolves, everything revolutionizes or they evolutionize. And I look at it from a stance as whatever that they do, be the best representation of your presentation, represent yourself and present yourself in the correct way, and be professional as always. And I think
Yeah.
that comes with the game of what we're doing here with Lingerie Fighting Championship, because there's so many different amazing women here, and you guys can definitely once again see the lingerie custom fitting of what you guys do. I think it really exudes and accentuates the future of LFC, because we've had so many people from wrestling, the adult entertainment world, fetish modeling, what have you. I think it puts eyes on the product from the stance of here's the old school guard, here's the new guard, here's the future. Everything needs to have that overall foundation. And I think what we see here is foundation. It's the legwork. It's the overall revolution, evolution, like I mentioned. But god dang, man, it's beautiful women kicking ass and taking names, looking good in the process. And you, ma'am, we're going to talk about you looking good here, because on the other side of things, you've done your thing with Evolve Fights with Ariel X. I wanted to ask you about this because I've seen some of your stuff with Bella Rossi and so many people on the Evolve Fights front, because that's also very unique too as well. Kicking ass and taking names from the fighting realm, but also provides that sensuality and that overall feel goodness that comes with the adult content creation. Talk about Evolve Fights.
Yeah. So I've well, and I'm close, good friends with Ariel, too, and that's really a big part of the reason why I would always go back, because she was so great and so professional and so easy to work with. But I always enjoyed Evolve, and I always enjoyed my co-stars, But let me tell you, like 6-minute rounds of like floor wrestling is so difficult, and I don't mean to sound like a whiny baby, but I think somebody from LFC even told me at the fitting, they're like, well, the rounds at LFC are only 3 minutes. And I was like, oh, wow. So there's perspective, right? But, I mean, it's still competitive, hardcore, wrestling. I think where the spin is and what I enjoyed the most is like you kind of get scored for your, like your sex, it's like sex fighting. So it's like, even though you have the holds and the moves, you're really getting your score by, like the sex moves, so the oral or the finger or the kissing or just, anything, that's like playful and, kind of sexual, right? So that, was the really, really, really the fun part for me. And there were different co-stars that I worked with, and some like I enjoyed the most, because they were a little bit slower paced like me, and they would enjoy and really, enjoy the like the sex element. And then there were others that were like straight competitive, and they would like tell me from the go, like they're competitive, and then they would just totally go in on the moves, the hardcore wrestling moves, and then that would be their stick. So the Evolved fights, it was really so fun because it was so unpredictable with your partner. And it's just always a good time to go with Ariel. And then you don't really have a wardrobe, so then you don't have to worry much about that. It's like easy makeup day. So I mean, it's always fun. And I still was talking to Ariel not too long ago about coming back, again. So I was getting my extra cardio in, like really hoping she'll bring me back again soon, because it's been a few years. But yeah, Evolved fights, yeah, I mean, it's always been a huge like part of my just like adult erotic career. I never was big on producing with a lot of, I didn't shoot with a lot of other producers, only a few. So yeah, Ariel's one that I'll always go shoot for again and again.
I think, and especially with sex fighting here, which I even told her, I'm like, God dang it, man, the concept of this, and I'm going to say this right now about your technique, Miss Brandi Mae. We certainly saw a lot of slow plotting, but just enjoying yourself in it, that really encapsulated with the film and the content. So kudos once more. But no, you need that. You need the overall, just the storytelling, make it draw it out, just have some fight with it, because that goes with everything, whether at LFC, storytelling is key, putting things into place. It's like chess, so to speak, putting the right board, and then boom, here's the checkmate. So what I love about it too as well, it's very enthralling, it's very capturing. And I think with what she does as well, you talk about doggone 6 rounds and everything. And like you mentioned, LFC, 3 minutes per round for each and every LFC fight. It's strenuous, but god dang, it's worth it. And there's something, it's a nice balance. It's a nice healthy balance for people to get into, right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's definitely a workout, so you are definitely leaving, there have, sweating and having, because you have your 3 rounds of the competitive, and then the winner, so then you have a fourth round, and that's probably a little bit longer, and that's just more of like, the winner, basically kind of screws the loser. So then, that's maybe a little bit, it's not athletic, it's just, sex, and, a little bit longer, just to make sure that you get good enough content for a good like 12 minutes or whatever scene. But so yeah, so in addition to the hardcore wrestling, you're pretty much just having sex afterwards too. So and I know that's why the site and stuff is so unique, and why she's the Evolved fights and stuff is so popular, because it was originally, I think, a spinoff kind of like from kink.com, and she's been able to just kind of keep it going, and not miss a beat with the fan base, and just build it up even more. So yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I've been hitting her up about going back, because it's been a few years. So I'm kind of wondering what my wrestling condition would be, over the years. I could tell when I was like trying to practice wrestling a little bit, and then other years where I was just bigger and bulky and I was just slow. So, my technique was always just kind of stay true to my own wrestling skill, and with everybody, I was always the same, because I knew my endurance and my speed. And even though some people would be quick and like little, some of those tiny women like just they clam on you, and you're like, geez Louise. But I always did. I just kind of kept my steady, slow, pace of going, because it's just, I wanted to make sure that I could, keep my endurance and my gas the whole, 4 rounds essentially.
Oh, agreed. And I'm going to put it to you like this. And I say this to the LFC girls, and I say this to anybody who listens to the show and anything in life: make the most of your time, because I think that's important with anything you do, is you make the most of your time, no matter how long it is, what have you. But I think what's also great about the product too, as well, and I'm going to put this over here, you look at the adult content creation, and we're going to get into your adult work here. I look at some of the stuff when I was a kid, like in 2005, 2006, started seeing a lot of the Naughty America stuff and many different websites out there. Mind you, there's different streaming platforms now. The evolution is streaming, and we see X Hamster, X Videos, and so many different platforms, Pornhub, what have you. I think the evolution of the adult entertainment industry and the content creation has really, stepped its game up. But man, looking at these sites and just in general, it takes a lot of people back who are into the adult entertainment industry, who are into different erotic films. I think just the progression of that is absolutely amazing to see. And it it really brings in a foundation of people that like these sort of kinks, nuances, preferences. I think it's one that really is not just stimulating to one's mind, both physically, internally, and externally, but I think it really encaptures a lot of the sensuality that we see in many different art forms and crafts, and that has really become the general consensus of adult entertainment.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because I started back. So basically, when I started, I was still using like tapes in my camera, and, people were still selling DVDs. And that's really what really motivated me to start producing like muscle erotica. And like, the very erotic side is I knew producers and, that were small little businesses, for 3 or 4 people, team, and they were making, like $100,000 off of one DVD. So, I mean, talk about like, that's one thing I have seen that has been a little bit upsetting is seeing the market change so much. And it's good in a way, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like it's more fragmented. So like more of like the models can kind of profit off their own, stuff. And in that way, I think it's really good. But like to see it saturated and see like what the tube sites, with all the piracy, to see how they really, I don't know, they, didn't do justice to the erotic business at all. In fact, it just really hindered the erotic business. And over time, especially the past like 10 years, because technology shifted so fast and there was so much piracy, it really, to me, it really diluted and degraded the quality of what I think the kind of erotic work we're seeing now. Like I still, have a studio on Clips for Sale. So, I'm on there quite often, and I could see different fetishes and production quality. So I still see like, some smaller studios still doing well, but the market of, erotica has changed a lot, even since I've been in it. People, we used to kind of produce movies, and like bigger storylines. And that was really what I enjoyed doing. Now these like really like short little videos and, 2-3 minutes, it's so like jarring. It takes kind of like you were talking, the art, and the appreciation and the passion and the creativity, it really waters it down and makes it not as motivating. So that's why even now, from a production and entertainer standpoint, I try to find that balance of, running my fan pages and accommodating in all that stuff, but still having those productions where I put the thought and the creativity and the fun in it. Because if I didn't, I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I just wouldn't be able to do it anymore because I've done it so long, and that there's got to be something fun or, or an outfit that's different or a fetish gear piece that you've never seen before. But it's like I've seen so much of all the same stuff. It feels like a lot of people are losing their creativity and their individuality, or they don't have enough individuality to put their own spin on it. And so it's like, it's just like people need to, but it is what it is. I mean, I just keep doing my thing and see what happens next, because the world, things change so quick and never know what could happen. So, but yeah, I mean, people used to make a lot of money from those DVDs and calendars at the expos. So man, when I got into it, I was like rearing ready, just like producer hat, let's go. Cause I'm ready to make that DVD money. But I do still enjoy it. Like I said, it's still fun.
First off, I'm going to say this. Thank you. And the reason why I say that is because you talk about the 2-3 minutes that we see now, what have you, in storylines. Like I remember as a kid, like every weekend, whether you put on like late at night HBO or Cinemax, and here's Nicole Sheridan and Willow doing their films and their storylines that you had a nice block of at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You see those films and you see like porn parodies like Spider Babe, which was a parody of the Spider-Man movies. And we see a lot of that now with Vivid. It's just the enhancement of the storyline. And I mean, some may find it cheesy, but I always looked at it from a stance to as well. You're putting that work in to create that fantasy, that sweet, sweet fantasy, to quote Mariah Carey and ODB, rest in peace. We have so
Yeah.
many things there that really encompasses one's fantasy. And I think a lot of people lose that art, like we talk about just, hey, here's where we want to go to A to B to C and really tell that story. We're not skipping chapters here, folks. We're going to give you a definitive ending, if you will, that climax.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we talk about. I think what's good it's now, but I think the problem is a lot of people don't realize like putting things into boom, boom, boom instead of just going straight to the finish line,
Yeah, no, I know I just try to do my thing. And but I think everything, it unfortunately it just it comes down to money and budget. Like I think I did one of the last like big movies I did was Sweetheart Films. It was a female wrestling video. Ariel was actually one of the main characters. And I played kind of a like I can't remember the wrestler they compared me to, but it was nominated for an AVN. But it was like, back in the day, I guess they used to do, multiple days and, types of, like a regular movie. And like they were shooting a whole movie in like one day. So like over time, even when I was talking to bigger studios, they were like on the down cusp end of like even spending budgets on movies anymore. Like you were saying, the parodies and like these movies that some of these studios used to make were really cool. And I mean, they were really big quality, sets and like equipment, like any other movie. And I was really, disappointed that like I was on the cusp end of like, shooting a few movies. And then like, the studios were just shifting gears because all the streaming and everything was changing. And I was like, oh man, because, I would have loved to have just done a few of those more bigger movies, even though like dialogue scares the hell out of me. So when I do have to do dialogue for like customs, or something, I get so like frantic because I'm good with ad libbing, but I still will push myself and I still want to like challenge it and conquer it and do it. So that's one thing I personally kind of, one of those things I'm always going to be like, oh, who knows? Maybe the industry, will come back around and I'll still be active enough to make a few movies. But that's always been like something I wanted to do a lot more of, just make those big elaborate movies, with big budgets. But right, everybody wants to. But I love the erotica spin on it, and I love, just that kinkiness and having that combination and throughout the whole movie, not just a short little scene. So it's still on my goal. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll be able to fund it myself and just put together, something.
I think anything is possible, and I think a lot of people would love to do
Yeah.
that. It's Brandi Mae. And I got to tell you, one of the things I love about seeing you on screen and doing your thing, I always love, first of all, you got nothing but great professionalism and decor and rapport, so to speak. And I think it shines through within your work. Like you mentioned, ad lib and everything. I remember seeing one of your scenes, I believe it was, sexercising, and you just have that very much erotic type of feel throughout the movie where you're just, you're working out and then it leads to an amazing scene. I think stuff like that really does, besides holds one attention, it's something like that that really can just say, God dang it, man, you watch this woman, she's beautiful, but also it really is very appealing. And I think you need to have that market because anything that we do, and I'll equate LFC to this, we're doing the E squared, as I like to call it. We're evoking emotions, if you will. Any type of story, any type of film, you have to evoke that emotions. Because if you have them sitting on your hands, then what's the doggone point? You have to evoke emotions in anything that you do. And speaking of evoking emotions, you have amazing chemistry with another one who's very sensual, who's very vibrant, and another one who does her craft very well. Got to talk about Ava Devine here because you two just have such great chemistry on screen and off screen. I wanted to ask you about your relationship with Ava Devine.
Sure. Yeah. So I've actually known Ava. I met her through a producer friend of mine, probably over 10 years ago. Um, and, we had chemistry right away. And, we shot years ago together and we just kind of recently shot together. But we've actually seen each other. We went to the same gym for many, many years. So we actually, would actually run into each other quite often. That's the funny thing about a place like Las Vegas. If you go to like the right gym, all the time, you'd be surprised who you might actually like run into and see, So yeah, I mean, we casually text and stay in touch. And, I know both of us are busy, too busy to like just go get coffee on the regular. But yeah, I mean, she's great and she's sweet and she's always been one of my like, dear close friends who, I just wish I could spend more time with. But, work is, always such a big, it's a lot of work in these days, even, these platforms. It's always, just a lot of, engaging with the fans. So I know she's super busy because she's got a huge fan base and a whole thing that she's doing. So, but yeah, she's great. I wish I would have been able to like wrestle and stuff a little bit more with her. I think she might be kind of into doing that now. I don't know. I might have to hit her up and and ask her. She would love it, So yeah, we use it. We have like use the same makeup girl all the time. So
Well, I think the grind never stops, and I think that really equates to both of you in general with life. But I think with her, yeah, I mean, for those who, I think a lot of people would love to see some LFC with Miss Ava Devine here because I got to put this over. Woman is in beast mode. You constantly see her at the gym. Looks absolutely fabulous. Really is so radiant with everything. Like, God dang it, man. She constantly is up on like gains, man.
yeah, she is, and she's actually really like she's taller than, she's not a tiny woman. Like she's like taller and I remember, yeah, I don't know if she's still because I don't have an Instagram. My Instagram for my personal one got deleted, so I'm not really following as many people anymore. But yeah, she's been into training for quite a while. Like and I know years back she got really, I think I saw her at the AVN a couple years ago, and she looked like a fitness competitor. I mean, she was just wearing her outfit, but she was just like ripped with her muscles and stuff. And yeah, she doesn't joke around, when it came to weight training and training with her trainer and stuff. So yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised how many women, like, we're pretty strong. And, like when we really wanted, and she's one of those, she's ambitious and works hard and will push herself. I mean, that's probably why we got along and became such, friends. But I'd love to like wrestle Ava, even if it was fantasy and stuff, if she would ever be open to it. I'm sure a lot of people would, but I definitely would.
I think that's the beauty of it with you, Miss Brandi Mae, because I know I've seen your stuff with the Laura Jensen now, who's also in Las Vegas. Like she's another one who I've just seen. What I also loved about her is like yourselves, very much a beautiful body, beautiful spirit. She really honed into her craft. I know you've done some work with her. So I mean, Las Vegas has produced a lot of great talents like yourself, Ava Devine, like I mentioned, Laura Jensen, and especially the LFC. It's the combative nature, it's the adult content capital of the world. There's so many things that you can do in Las Vegas. It's just insane, just the amount of things that are at your fingertips.
Yeah, and I'm excited to, go to this, the July, like the July LFC show, and I'm really, now that I'm really, getting into it more and really, looking at all the content, meeting all the girls, I'm really kind of like upset with myself that I didn't like go to at least a match before, because I did have, I've had a lot of friends of mine be in past, I mean, years back, be in these, like, matches, and I just never went out. And I'm kind of like, damn, that, man, I really wish I would have went and supported even years ago. So now I'm really excited to actually just come to these matches and just see these women, and support them. And watch them fight and wrestle, because I mean, they really are some great athletes. I mean, and they're really, some of them, they look like the girl next door, like Jolene, like you see them out and you just would never in a million years think that they, look as hot as they do, and then are real athletes and can kick ass. And so, I'm excited to just kind of be, even a little smidgen part of it, and just kind of appreciate the girls, and not even in a like overly pervert way, but really just appreciate them, for their beauty and their, athleticism, and I'm honored that, they even wear, mine and Kim's, clothes and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm like super stoked about, the next few months and all the fun stuff with them.
You mentioned something that's so imperative here. Like you look at a woman like Jolene the Valkyrie Hex, who's the current LFC champion, holds all the gold here. Like a woman badass, she has that background in Krav Maga. We see women like Ziva Faye, who was at the custom fitting, just made her debut at the last LFC, won in the first round in 45 seconds. Bella Madison, who's another one, wrestler, trainer in that front. Bella Rockefeller, and a lot of the girls that we saw in the custom fitting video. Kira Batara coming straight out of Bellator, the MMA round. Boom, here we are with
Wow.
LFC. There's so many women, and like you look at Kira, and I'm gonna say right now, very short, very tiny, but she is such a brute for her size and her stature. She's so disciplined. Like you see just so many women like that. It's amazing, like you mentioned. And I think what I do like about it as well, and I'll use the operative word here, and I include you in these sentiments, Miss Brandi Mae, very multifaceted, can do so much in such a variety. Like yourself, we talked about adult work, bodybuilding. Here we go, Niche Boutique looking fine as wine. This stuff like that is so well, because the key word here is multifaceted. We need a multifaceted way, and we need a variety in anything that we do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't know that I mean, I knew these girls were badass, but like, I mean, the way that they train, even at the fitting, they were talking about, the very next morning they were getting up and going all training together at like, it was pretty early, and then they were taking a break and doing something else. And I was like, wow, and if some of those girls had like come in from other places, and I was like, they're just like, they're really motivated. And what I really liked about a lot of them too is that they were really excited to be wrestlers and to be part of the organization. I mean, so much so that it makes you want to be part of it. You know what I mean? I mean, it really does. And it was really cool to see that camaraderie and see it be so genuine and so friendly and so opening and engaging, because like, I just wasn't, and not that the female bodybuilders aren't like that, but this was just, it was just more, it was a little bit less ego and a lot more love and appreciation. You know what I mean? And even for me, they were kind of like, well, what are you doing here, Brandi? Like, what is this about? And I just kind of gave them a quick thing and then took their measurements. And, we had given them complimentary bikinis, so that, kind of, gives a woman like, oh, and so buttered them up with like a nice little bikini. And then they were all really, just go with the flow, so I could kind of take their measurements and stuff. But just to see the love and their motivation to like wrestle, I really was motivated by it. I mean, I'm motivated with the weights, but still, I was like, man, these women are like training for hours, and then they're promoting. I was like, geez, Louise, that's really just really cool. I mean, it really is. If the fans don't know, I mean, they're so dedicated, and it was just so impressive to me.
It's the dedication and what, as I like to call it, the community and the unity of the girls, if you will. And I mean, they just did, Kira and them just did a training over there at the UFC gym where all the girls were training, including the girls from the Work Hard podcast. I mean, I look at that and I'm just like, God dang, man, I love to see that as well. And I'm going to say this about you at the bodybuilding realm. I think what's great about you, Brandi, and I think what a lot of people gravitate towards, like, I remember when I first saw one of your films and then you started flexing, man, showing off the pecs, showing off the biceps, what have you. It's that right there. It's like, boom. I want to see more of that, because it's just we talk about external beauty, and overall, it's just you showcasing that muscle and the strength of yourself with your overall core right here. Everything that we do comes from the heart, the mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
So I think that's why kind of gravitated me towards you, because I remember seeing that. I'm like, God dang, man, I want to see more. So I got to say, the overall flexing just of your body and just your overall flex that you have and are engaged with, I got to say that does a lot and it works wonders for everybody, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, it's funny because I actually, quick little story, because I don't think a lot of people know this, and I don't ever really get the opportunity to really tell anybody. But like, when I say things have changed in such a short period of time, and I actually researched it today because I wanted to make sure I had the date, like I had the time frame accurate. But it was like as early as 2011, when Dana White said that women would never fight in the UFC. So when I relocated to Vegas from Texas around 2009, 2010, during the first recession, I came out here, and I was actually a kickboxer. I trained in Muay Thai. So I wasn't actually a bodybuilder then. Even in Texas, I trained as a kickboxer. And I came out here and I actually started training with Master Toddy, who was a prolific Muay Thai master from Thailand. And he actually was Gina Carano's trainer. And at the time, there were no women fighters anywhere. Gina Carano had a Showtime contract, and they would pair her up with these fighters. And so I actually was offered a position at Master Toddy's, and he offered to like train me and put me on the fight team. But then, I being like a young model and, trying to like find a direction and stuff, and being in a city like Vegas, I actually chose to do the modeling route, and I turned that down, and I chose another career path, obviously, what I chose, because there was no career or anything for female fighters. And that was just a short, couple 12 13 years ago. So it's like to see how things have progressed. And I think it was in 2019 when Dana White was in an interview, and they said something to him, and he basically said he had to put his foot in his mouth for what he said. But I mean, it's just so, like, for me, that's why I look back and I just see how things have changed so much. It's really because I was actually a fighter before I was a bodybuilder. And but then once I chose the bodybuilding and the modeling route, I just never looked back. And I think that's why I didn't do the LFC, and I just kind of stuck to the erotic stuff, because I don't know if it was just me being salty that they, I don't know what it was, but it's interesting just to see how so much has changed, and now to see how it'll probably progress, and how things like the power slap, and just to see all these other little things come about. I'm just like, man, the world's moving so damn fast. This is just so, crazy. And then you have people tell you, oh, I'm 41 now. They're like, oh, you're never too old to do things. And I'm like, yeah, I know that I'm not too old if I wanted to. But, you do get older and you do, there's only so much time in a day, so you have to pick and choose priorities. And so it's like, I can't do all the, when you're young, it's like you can spend 6-7 hours a day on athletics. And, and I did that for years. I spent 4 hours a day in the gym, lifting weights, doing cardio, but you can't do that your whole life. So you have to, you have to pick and choose, what you do. But it's really cool. I mean, it really is come such a long way in such a short period of time. And it's funny because I don't think people really talk about that enough, or like it's not brought up enough. And I'm like, wow, is the generation, are they not aware, like, that how much progress women in fighting have come in like such a short period of time? Because if it was today's time, I probably easily would have chose the fight route. You know what I mean? In today's market, had I had that same choice. So I just was like, I got to tell this story because I'll never be able to tell it anywhere else because nobody else, really cares. But yeah, so I mean, I had a pretty good little Muay Thai, intro. And I wasn't too bad, I was really good with my kicks. I still have the form, but the power's not as good as it used to be with my side kicks and stuff. But man, those kicks will get you.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand with a lot of great talents that we see. And first of all, I'm going to put this out here before I go back to your point here. God is good, as I say with everybody here, because God gets you through even the toughest end times and everything comes back full circle. So here you are now with LFC, ma'am. So I got to give you kudos with that.
Yeah.
But a different avenue. And also, I look at it from a stance too as well. You look at women like Ronda Rousey, Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, the transition from wrestling to MMA and MMA to wrestling. We see so many things that coincide and intertwine, if you will. I mean, back in the day where they focused more on the eye candy and the bra and panties matches, beautiful women, absolutely. But they never got to show what we see now with how just athletic and just how we're all, just the presentation of what they put on there. I mean, you look at back in the days of women like Medusa Michelli, Alondra Blaze, Bull Nakano. You look at women like Sable, Tori Wilson, Jacqueline, Molly Holly, China, as we mentioned earlier. You look at women like that in professional wrestling. If you want to take it back to Hollywood and the Glow days, and Hollywood's another one who's done sessions wrestling. I look at it from a stance there as well. Everything from the 80s to 90s to where we have now is amazing to see where we're at. We have so many different wrestling styles from different countries and international wise and the stateside. There's so much growth there that's there. And like you mentioned, Dana White eating his words, Power Slap. Sheena Bathory from LFC has been on Power Slap, which it's amazing just to see how the art form of slap fighting is now coming together. There is something for everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and Sheena's another one who is just, she impresses because I know her backstory and I know how she's just like this trained machine fighter. And I've actually had conversations, and this is so awkward, like she'll probably be like, what, Brandi? But like I've actually had conversations with session wrestling clients about her, not that she's done it, but that I'll be like, well, she's so, because they'll always ask about, the guys will ask about, these hot, badass girls, if you know them and if you talk to them and if they're really as tough as they, and when I would be like, no, she really is, like she's a machine. And it would be funny to see the guys be like intimidated by it. Like, and I'm like, how can you not just appreciate a specimen who is not only gorgeous, but like they're a trained like machine? Like you don't get, like, you have to respect it. And so I've had conversations, and guys, you could see their kind of ego, flare up because they know that she's that you just can tell she's that bad. When you've been training since you were a kid, you're just a crazy machine. So these women, they really are, they're so impressive. And some of these guys, I don't think their egos can handle the real badass, like the real tough ones. And Ariel X is another one. Like, people don't know how trained and like really skilled, and like could really, don't mess with them yet, because they could really hurt you. Like, oh, it's so, I don't know. I'm just impressed by it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just a fan and oogling myself, but I just think that's just so freaking incredible. A woman to just be so sweet and feminine and sensual, and to just be able to like crack you know, and like a spy in a movie and just take a guy out, you know. It's just, I don't know, it's just so cool to me. It really is. It's so cool. I love all these women.
Sheena's like the female Ivan Drago, I must break you, if you will, with how she goes, with her just overall size, stature, and machine S. It's like a female Terminator. And it's funny, like I was very much this close to it because LFC 35 back in Vegas, I ring announced that show, was the booty camp event, Sheena's debut. And we were just like talking and playing. And she, I'm going to say this right now, folks, probably has one of the most powerful headlocks I've ever had because this woman put me in a headlock and I felt like my head was about to explode. And we were just play fighting, but it was hilarious because she got me and I wasn't expecting it. And she got me so good right in the headlock. It was hilarious. Oh my goodness.
She's strong. Yeah, she's strong.
Yep, like I felt like my head was about to explode. I'm like, Jesus. And I mean, I love that. And I get to see so much. First of all, the personalities of all these ladies are absolutely amazing, and including Sheena. She's such a bright spark in the industry. I look at it from a stance too as well, man. God dang, like you, Sheena, Jennifer Thomas, Ariel X. What I was always fascinated with Ariel about is she's very trained in the jiu-jitsu realm. She's done a lot of tournaments. She's really put in that work. And I think a lot of people give her the credit like she rightfully deserves, right?
She has. She actually really, I remember many a times working with her for Evolved Fights and her talking about going to a tournament or competing in a tournament the next day, even just by herself. And I was like, wow, that's just so, I don't know. It's not crazy. It's just so impressive to me, you know, for these women, they're dedicated to this martial arts. You know, I don't, you know, like I said, I think just because I probably, the part of me would have loved to, you know, stick with it, you know, myself to some degree. And unfortunately, I just had to make choices, you know, but to see them do stuff like that, be in tournaments and, you know, go by themselves and just like, that's just their thing. I mean, I don't know. I think it's cool. And they have so much camaraderie and respect for one another. You know, maybe a few of them, you know, might have a few, you know, spats here and there, but for the most part, everybody's just so supportive and everybody's sweet and everybody's nice to me. And that's one thing I'm grateful for too, because I'm like, well, everybody's nice to me and I'm nice to everybody, because you don't want to piss off any of those girls. I don't want to be in a headlock, you know, so.
Well, let's be honest here, Miss Brandi Mae. You are the bomb, so everybody's going to be nice to you because you are the bomb. Let's put that out there, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
But
you.
no, you're welcome. But no, that's the thing too, folks. And I think as you can tell by listening to today's forum, we're all appreciators, if you will. There's a word for everybody, the appreciators and the supporters
Yeah.
of the overall craft that is LFC and combative natures and bodybuilding. Yes. And as I always say with this show, life is an art form and we are all applying our crafts, and let's all continue to apply our crafts in amazing fashion. And before we get on out of here, Miss Brandi Mae, first and foremost, it's such a joy. It's an absolute pleasure to pick your brain and just talk about so many different aspects of your life. You're welcome. I'd love to have you back for a round two.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was such a pleasant, yeah, it went so fast and was such a fun time. Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, before we do close this out, man, I know your Instagram unfortunately did get hacked. I did see that on the social media realm, unfortunately. Where can we follow you as far as Twitter goes? Do you do Twitter or are you mainly just on? Okay, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is Miss May for you with the number 4. I try to keep that simple, but I do have my Niché Boutique collection on Instagram. So I'm just trying to kind of build up and, you know, getting ready to kind of launch probably my website, actually probably by the end of the week. And I'm developing it myself. So let me give myself some kudos. I did go back and kind of took some coding class for about 3 months. And so I was like, I'm going to develop and do this business like all female, you know, owned. So yeah, so I'm developing that. So, but just, yeah, so Twitter and my Instagram is, you know, really the only places, unfortunately, you know, in my OnlyFans, but Twitter is probably the main, I'm all there all the time posting and pushing my bratty opinions about stuff. So yeah, I'm back on there all the time.
I think what I love about you as well is your marketing standpoint here, because I'm going to put this, first of all, Niché Boutique. I think I said niche earlier, but Niché Boutique is probably, it has that, reminds me of like that Voulez-vous que avec ce soir, that Lady Marmalade type of like very bougie but classy at the same time. It's a great marketing strategy, right?
Good. I'm glad you like it. Thank you. Yeah, and the funny thing is actually it's kind of a spin on myself and Kim's middle names, because we actually to have the same middle name. So it's like total double entendres and all kinds of meanings and stuff in there. So yeah, it's really cool. And it's easy to, remember. And hearing the girls pronounce it all different kind of ways is really funny. They're sending me these, little Instagrams and one saying it this way and that way, but it's just it is marketing and it's a lot of fun. But thank you so much for, letting me talk about it and showcasing, letting me talk about it and showcase it a little bit. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. And you got Miss Mandy for You on Twitter, which is another one with the number 4, Miss Mandy for You. Your number 1, all for us, all for you. Put on some Janet Jackson. Hello, I digress. But folks, if you want to check out this podcast, check out LFCfights.com. It's the VIP section. And if you want to see some Brandi Mae over here, not only on this podcast, check out the lingerie custom fitting of Niché Boutique with all the amazing ladies of Lingerie Fighting Championships now in the VIP section. And check out LFCfights.com for all your LFC needs. And as I always say with this show, beauty, strength, and dominance, the 3 key elements that make women the work of art that they are. Miss Brandi Mae, you sexy buff babe, you. I include you in the sentiments. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good one, hon, and talk to you soon.